Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium, and I'm here to talk about a Pokemon that actually prior to coming up with this video idea, I have not used very much. But this is Venusaur, a sleeper pick for ADV, which if you don't know why I call it a sleeper pick, it's going to become very apparent soon enough. So let's start here with the viability rankings. But before I get too deep into what I'm going to talk about with Venusaur in particular, I was thinking as I'm coming up to about 100 subscribers now, that I would maybe do a Pokemon that is ranked B1 or higher. I have not delved into that territory yet, and you have no doubt seen me use all of these Pokemon, I think at least once, in previous videos. So I could talk a little bit more particularly about them. The reason why I've been avoiding it has kind of been because I feel like there are already a lot of videos on the well-used and well-represented Pokemon in the tier. And I also think that, you know, even if you don't have a specific video, it's not too hard to like see how these Pokemon are used on your own time, because you're almost certainly going to have them on your team. But I digress. I do think it's important to have something to say about each of the well-represented Pokemon as well. So if that's something you guys would be interested in, you could let me know in the comments. If you would rather me do like the opposite approach, like look at some UU, RU, NU Pokemon, I mean, I guess I could do that as well, but I feel like everybody gets that itch scratched by Jimothy Cool anyway, so, I mean, I don't know, but leave it up to you. In any case, Venusaur, surprise, surprise, is not a D-ranked Pokemon or higher, so we're going to have to look at the E rank. And there it is, not too far in, just below the Regis and a couple of other Pokemon there. It's pretty well respected for a Pokemon that's not OU ranked, so that's quite nice. Why is it getting so much respect here? Well, I think a big part of it is its stat spread. This is a really balanced spread here for a Pokemon with only a 525 total. Granted, 525 is on the higher side in Gen 3, but like it's definitely not the same as like the pseudo-legendaries like Salamence and Metagross, or the Mythicals with the 600 base total. In any case, Venusaur has the same speed as Medicham, Blaziken, and Dragonite, which is, I think, kind of surprising. It looks like it's supposed to be a big, fat, tanky thing, but it's got some speed to it as well. But that being said, it is still pretty good at the tanking. It's got the 80, 83, 100 defensive profile. That's actually pretty good. And it's got the same special attack as Jirachi and Celebi, so it's not even like particularly weak hitting either. Its attack stat, while it's lower and it's not in a very high status, it's only 2 less than Charizard, and Charizard is known to throw out some physical attacks. Now granted, generally physical Charizard is using Belly Drum to raise its attack stat, but Venusaur, believe it or not, gets Swords Dance and can do something kind of similar if you would like it to. Granted, it does not have the 100 base speed of Charizard, but I digress. It's got the mixed stab of Grass and Poison. When I say mixed stab, I mean special and physical. In this generation, Poison is considered a physical attacking type, so even moves like Sludge Bomb are physical. This can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on the Pokemon. I think for Venusaur, because it has such usable attack and special attack, that this is more a good thing than a bad. It also has some really good coverage, like Earthquake, which you wouldn't necessarily expect. So it actually gets a lot for like a early game starter Pokemon that you're not expecting to be able to do much. Also, it's got those healing moves, Leech Seed and Synthesis, which we will talk in more detail about soon. But we're going to make a little bit of a pivot here to talk about Sleep, the status in Gen 3. It'll become apparent why, if you're not already caught on to why I'm talking about this. But in any case, Sleep, Pokemon that are asleep will not be able to act, meaning that when they click an attacking move, the turn is basically deleted for them. They don't get to do anything unless they're clicking the move Sleep Talk or Snore. Sleep Talk will call one of the other 3 moves that you have at random. I think there are some exceptions, like for I believe Focus Punch will not be called by Sleep Talk, but yeah, it can call any other move, including Rest, which will just fail, or Snore, which Snore's a bad move. Don't use it. It has a 30% flinch chance, and a lot of people see that and think, oh well, Jirachi has the Serene Grace, double the flinch chance. It's kind of like what it does in DPP and future generations with its Iron Head. No, it's not worth it. Don't use it, please. But in any case, Pokemon will be asleep for 1 to 4 turns in this generation. If you're familiar with modern gens, which would be like 6 to 9, at least at the time of recording, I think it's only 1 to 3 turns that Pokemon are asleep. So in Gen 3, there is an additional turn. As far as I can tell, you're equally likely to wake up on any turn. So you're not any more likely to wake up on turn 1 than you are on turn 4. I mean, probability is weird. Like, if you already see that you haven't woken up on turn 1, then, the probability shifts. But I think, like, just bare bones, it's basically think about it as a 25% chance that you could wake up on any of those turns. Prior to burning any of them. If that's confusing or not correct, I can try to clarify in the comments. But it's more complicated than it probably ought to be. And any Pokemon that wakes up, like if they waking up happens at the beginning of your turn, if you wake up on a turn, you will be able to act on that turn. That is not how it is in Gen 1, but I believe in every other generation it works like that. So that's kind of nice. You can't be re-put back to sleep without at least getting your turn off, which is really cool. These are the sleep-inducing moves in Gen 3. I'm pretty sure I got all of them, but I might have missed 1 or 2, and you can, again, let me know in the comments if I did. I've got them color-coded, basically based on their accuracy. Spore is like the crown jewel of sleep moves because it's a 100% accurate move. 100% guaranteed to gain you free turns, which is really, really broken, honestly. If we didn't have a sleep clause, which I would hope if you're clicking on this video you know what sleep clause is, but if you don't, in competitive Gen 3 and many other generations or formats, you're only allowed to put one of your opponent's Pokemon to sleep at a time. If you try to use a move that puts a Pokemon to sleep when you've already put another Pokemon to sleep, then it just fails as far as this competitive Smogon goes. Not like that in VGC. You can put as many Pokemon to sleep as you want, as far as I could tell, but that's another digression. Sleep Powder, Lovely Kiss are pretty nice. They're 75% accuracy. You're going to hit them, I mean, as often as things like Will-O-Wisp. So, I mean, we talk about Will-O-Wisp being one of the best moves in the game. I feel like Lovely Kiss and Sleep Powder are in the same sort of conversation, maybe not exactly, because you can burn as many Pokemon as you want. You can't put as many Pokemon to sleep as you want, but sleep is very powerful, as we will get into. Hypnosis, some Pokemon like Gengar and Milotic can use that. It's a little bit fishy, and for a Pokemon like Gengar, who's not super duper bulky, it usually only gets one chance. So yeah, it's not great. Sing Grass Whistle. You've seen me use Sing on Blissey, and I believe in the last video that I uploaded about Umbreon. So that's kind of a cool move. Grass Whistle's quite similar, but only used by, I think, Roselia. It's really the only one that I've ever seen use it. And then there's Yawn. Yawn is interesting because it's 100% accurate, but it doesn't put you to sleep on the turn that it's used. It puts you to sleep after the next turn. So it's kind of interesting. It forces switches, which is really cool. But yeah, that's basically the overview of sleep as a mechanic. Now let's talk about the role that sleep plays in the tier. So one of the common things that you use sleep for is to lead with a sleep inducer or a Pokemon that has a sleep inducing move. So the reason why you want to do that is a sleeping Pokemon can't act, so it kind of gives you a 6-on-5 advantage right at the beginning of the game. Here are the 5, by my estimation, the 5 most common sleep Pokemon that go in the lead slot. That's not to say that if this Pokemon is in the lead slot, it is a sleep inducer, but I would say probably for the vast majority of the time, they have sleep moves if they're in the lead. So I'm sure most of you are not surprised to see Smeargle and Breloom with Spore. Like that's very well known. Venusaur and Jinx obviously would like to use their respective sleep moves, and you've probably seen Jinx a handful of times if you've been watching any tournament replays where they're using a special offense team. Jinx is a very, very common lead for that. But there's Gengar as well, and Hypno Gengar. Hypno is how I shorten Hypnosis, by the way. The set that Gengar runs with Hypnosis sometimes is called Hypnogar. So if you ever hear me say that, that's what I mean. Hypnogar in the lead is kind of a menace. 60% of the time, you will get the sleep off and keep your opponent from being able to do anything on turn 1. And then ideally, you would switch to a Pokemon that handles what is in front of it, and then you gain initiative that way. If you're familiar with Gen 9, fast Pokemon with a sleep-inducing move became a big problem, like mostly Darkrai and Iron Valiant. And Gengar is kind of the closest equivalent that we have to that in ADV. And I believe there was some discourse about maybe banning sleep moves altogether, but I don't think that gained enough traction for it ultimately to be pursued. I think that I kind of have a give-take relationship with sleep. Like, I mean, it is nice that some of these Pokemon who otherwise would not have a niche in OU get a niche, but also, like, it does kind of just give you free turns, which feels a little bit less skill expressive to me, but I don't know, it's a complicated issue, but to complicate the lead issue even more, because we talked about the accuracy of these moves, you would think Gengar would be really horrible given the options, since it's got the least accurate sleep move, but base speed matters a lot. If you are faster than your opponent, then taking away their turn can really, really help you out. Say, take for example Gengar versus Zapdos. Zapdos generally is going to 2-hit KO Gengar with Thunderbolt, and if it gets a crit or a paralysis, then it's even worse for the Gengar. Gengar is maybe going to 2-hit back with Ice Punch. It depends on whether you're an offensive Gengar and the Zapdos especially defensive or not, but we'd say like 2 or 3 hit KO. If Gengar gets a Hypnosis off on Zapdos before it can do anything, then it's afforded itself, at minimum, the same situation that it was going to be in on turn 1 anyway, if the Zapdos wakes up on the next turn. But I think 75% of the time, Gengar gets an extra turn to click Ice Punch and potentially more. So that's actually a really big advantage to having a lot of speed. And Venusaur, surprisingly, is the 3rd fastest out of all 5 of these. So it can take a lot of advantage of that fast sleep if you want it to. Now, I mean, still not as fast as Jinx, and Jinx is about as consistent at putting things to sleep as Venusaur is. I would argue maybe Venusaur's a little bit more consistent because Venusaur doesn't die to a stiff breeze, whereas Jinx is definitely in danger anytime it's in and taking an attack, so at least before it gets its Calm Mind boosts. But yeah, this is kind of how it breaks down. As for which Pokemon you're going to choose for your team, it kind of depends. Smeargle's nice because it offers that utility early. Jinx is nice because it is immediately threatening to sweep if you can't deal with it, etc., etc. But we're gonna talk a little bit about the counterplay to sleep, because if we're gonna use these Pokemon for like spreading sleep, we want to know how our opponents can play around it. So there are 2 abilities that make you immune to the sleep status in Gen 3. That's Vital Spirit and Insomnia. They both do basically the same thing. They're essentially the same ability. And then there's another ability called Early Bird, which has the amount of turns that you would be asleep. So you can't, with an Early Bird Pokemon, you can't lose 4 turns to sleep. The max I believe you can lose is 2. And it's also possible for an Early Bird Pokemon to wake up on turn 0 this generation, I believe. It's not an interaction you see very commonly, because here are the Pokemon. You might be like, what? I have not seen any of these Pokemon. Maybe you've seen Houndoom, maybe you've seen Banette, but you're like, I am not familiar with these Pokemon in this generation, and that is because they are all lower classification Pokemon. Dodrio and Houndoom at a pretty respectable UUBL. Hypno somehow in UU, I mean, I guess, sure. And then Banette and Primeape are RU, so they're not great. And I didn't cherry pick these ones as like to say, oh, like these abilities suck. I mean, I tried to pick the highest ranked ones that I could see. I believe Primeape is the highest ranked Pokemon with Vital Spirit. Your other options are like Vigoroth and Mankey. So like, you don't really have to worry about that ability really. Insomnia, maybe you'll see Banette. An Early Bird, you might see Houndoom, but yeah, the rest of these Pokemon are like not seen, and even the ones I just mentioned are pretty rare. There's Lum or Chesto-Berry. Now, again, Lum and Chesto-Berry are not ultra common items. There are a lot of advantages to running Leftovers, which is why it's the most dominant item in the format. But Lum and Chesto can be kind of nice, particularly Lum for shrugging off things like Paralysis and Wisp, so that your Pokemon can get its boost off unremitted. For Tyranitar, that would be a Dragon Dance. For Metagross, that would usually be Agility. But I have Exeggutor here as an example of a Pokemon that's not really boosting, but still likes to have the Lumberry, and it's like, because it has such little longevity, generally Exeggutor's in to kill what's in front of it or die to what's in front of it. So you don't really value the Leftovers that much on this type of Pokemon. So Lumberry is nice so that it stuffs any passive Pokemon trying to stop Exeggutor from sweeping. Take for example an Umbreon going for Thunder Wave. You'll Lumberry that off and then fire back with the Solar Beam. I note Chesto Berry here because it specifically stops sleep for one turn, or I should say it cures your sleep once. But there are not very many Pokemon that use it. In theory, you could use it with like Rest Snorlax, but that's not a super duper common set. And then the last one, obviously, is Sleep Talk, which, if you've seen my Heracross video, you know what Sleep Talk can help you do. And there are a handful of other Pokemon that get Sleep Talk as well, but Sleep Talk has its own weird stuff with sleep. If you want to know more about it, you should watch my Heracross video. But like the conclusion here is that there's not a lot of counterplay to sleep in this generation, so it is really powerful. Most teams are not going to have any of these things that you see on the screen, and if they do, they may only have like one of them. And a lot of these are like temporary fixes. Like Lumberry, you could just sleep them again. So yeah, it's not looking like there's much there. So that's why these sleep Pokemon are really strong. But we're going to talk about another aspect of Venusaur's game, and that's the kind of rare grass typing. Grass itself is not that rare a type, but it's not a very highly sought after type for competitive, which makes sense because it has a lot of weaknesses compared to other types. Fire, ice, flying, poison, and bug. Of those, like three of those are pretty common attacking types, and even like flying and bug, or I should say, no, bug is common enough, I'd say, because of hidden power. I mean, poison is less common. It's sometimes seen when you see like a Weezing or a Venusaur, but generally that one doesn't really count as a weakness. But it does not have a lot of resistances either to offset those myriad weaknesses. But let's talk about the premier grass type of ADV, which is Celebi. So it has the best bulk out of all three of these grass types, hundreds across the board. It's tied with Venusaur for the best special attack, and it has the best speed. It also has the synergistic psychic typing, so its dual stab of grass and psychic are using the same attacking stat, which makes it really easy to invest and still have the dual stab coverage. The other two, they have the mixed coverage, so if you want to use your grass type moves and your secondary stab moves, you're going to have to invest in both, which is not usually that easy to swing. Celebi has Recover and Baton Pass. It also has Leech Seed and Swords Dance, but so do the other two, so I didn't bother mentioning it. But that's a lot of really good utility moves. You see a lot of like Baton Pass with Calm Mind, or with Swords Dance, or with Substitute, or some combination. And that makes Celebi like a particularly strong Pokemon, at least in terms of this getting support for the rest of the team angle. Now, Doug Trio, geez. Celebi is weak to Bug, 4 times so. It is not very good at taking out Blissey. It can maybe muscle through Blissey if it's a Swords Dance, Hidden Power, Rock / Bug set, but that's generally a little bit rarer than Celebi's other sets. Now, it's not like so bad because Celebi gets a lot of utility out of Leech Seeding Blissey, because while Blissey doesn't take that much damage from Leech Seed, it heals so much to every other Pokemon because of Blissey's ridiculously high HP stat. And then, yeah, we're trapped by Doug Trio, which is not ideal. As for Venusaur, it's got good mixed attacking stats, as I've talked about before. Not technically as good as Celebi's, but arguably it's better because you have to stab Sludge Bomb and you have Earthquake coverage, whereas Celebi is primarily going to have to rely on Hidden Power to get a physical move. It could use Return, I guess. I actually have seen that on the ladder. but it's a little bit more limited on its physical side. It has pretty good bulk, a little asterisk here. That helps to facilitate Venusaur to come into the in the mid game and spread sleep. So maybe you had a bad lead matchup with your Venusaur, supposing you're going for a lead Venusaur, which if it is in a game, I think generally it's the lead. You can definitely swap your lead up. You don't there is not as much a dedicated lead idea in ADV as there is in other generations. So you don't have to subscribe to that, but if you do lead Venusaur and you find yourself not in a good lead matchup, it has the bulk to be able to come in on a hit and then go for Sleep Powder then, or go for Leech Seed then. The minuses for Venusaur are that it's slower than a lot of the threats in the tier, primarily the base 100s. And there are a lot of pretty scary base 100s for Venusaur, including Celebi, Jirachi, Salamence, all of which have super effective stab into it. And then it's kind of hard to fit all the coverage options that you would like on Venusaur, as well as allocate the EVs so that it has good special attack and attack if you're trying to make use of that. You would like to have Hidden Power Fire for Steel types, and you would like to have a Grass type move, and you would like to also have Sludge Bomb to spread poison and to have a strong physical attack to hit Blissey with, and you would maybe like to have Earthquake also to mid ground against Rock and Steel types, but you can't fit all of that into one set. Not to even mention things like Swords Dance and Sleep Powder and all that. And then we have Breloom, who is a really good physical wall breaker, and it's got Spore, which is definitely the best sleep-inducing move in the game, but it has a lot of weaknesses, frankly. It's kind of mediocre speed. It has a ×4 weakness to flying. It's got really bad bulk. And it's also got really limited coverage. We talk about Celebi not having a lot of physical moves, while Breloom, if it's not a fighting type move, Breloom doesn't really get that move. So that's kind of tough. But obviously, the two on the outside are OU ranked. Venusaur is UUBL. Kind of reason for that being is that Celebi has better overall stats and special coverage than Venusaur, so it's a better special attacker, generally speaking. And then Breloom, because it has the way higher attack stat, and it's more consistent with its accuracy on its sleep-inducing move, it's an immediate threat to do damage to a team. Oftentimes you'll see a lead Breloom get a Spore on something, and then it's going for Focus Punch, and if you don't have Gengar on your team, or Salamence with the Intimidate, or Gyarados with Intimidate and Resist, you don't really have a great switch into Focus Punch. So that's kind of makes up for all the weaknesses here. Not entirely. I'm a little bit down on Breloom as of late, but that's kind of why we're talking about Venusaur, who's a little bit of a meet in the middle of these two. Celebi doesn't get any sleep-inducing moves, not even Hypnosis, so Venusaur can kind of play to both roles here. So here's the matchup spread for Venusaur. By my estimation, Swampert's really the only Pokemon that super duper hard loses to Venusaur. Granted, if you're running a full physical attacking Venusaur, then Swampert is no longer losing that matchup, especially if it has Ice Beam. But the threat of any Grass-type move on Venusaur does make Swampert very scared to stay in to find out. So you can at least get yourself a free turn that way. If not, you'll just Sleep Powder, and you're most likely going to be faster than Swampert. So from many angles, Venusaur is beating Swampert. Every other Pokemon is not as clear-cut. I would say Venusaur is generally going to beat Breloom, who's probably its next best matchup in the tier. It's faster. It'll get its sleep off first. Recall that in Gen 3, grass types are not immune to powder moves like Spore or Sleep Powder. So you can totally put other grass types to sleep. And then if you're running Sludge Bomb or Hidden Power Fire, you will have a super effective move to hit the Breloom. Cloister, if I'm being honest with myself, it's probably a little more set dependent. If you're physical with Venusaur, you're absolutely doing nothing to Cloister. You might be able to sleep it and get some Sword Stances off, but if Cloister wakes up in Booms or wakes up in Ice Beams, that's pretty tough for you. But not every Cloister has Ice Beam. Yeah, every Cloister has Boom, though, so, I mean, that's kind of not great. Yeah, rest of these Pokemon, it's usually Venusaur's gonna, they're really slow, and Venusaur's gonna put them to sleep, or in the case of Medicham, doesn't have a great move to hit Venusaur with, and doesn't have the bulk to live too many of Venusaur's hits in return. Venusaur is a rare Pokemon that actually deals well with Milotic, especially if you're running a special attacking Venusaur. So that's kind of good. And then also just good to be good against Tyranitar. And that's kind of regardless of the Venusaur set, because you'll have Earthquake if you're a physical attacker usually. But I should note that Synthesis, which is Venusaur's direct healing move, is halved in its efficacy when Sandstorm is up. So you're only going to get 25% back, which is not much at all. So that particular, if you're doing like what's called the Disabler set, which we'll talk about on probably the next slide, that's not very good against Tyranitar. But everything else, you have super effective moves. It kind of comes down to if Tyranitar is running max special attack Fire Blast or Ice Beam or something like that. The middle section here, we're a little bit trade dependent on, and also a little bit set dependent on. The steel types, Venusaur's Disabler set is really bad into them, because I think its only attacking move is Sludge Bomb on that set. So yeah, the steel types can be a big problem, especially so Magneton and Metagross, who are able to immediately threaten the Venusaur, whereas Skarmory, it has Drill Peck, but if you Leech Seed the Skarmory, then you're usually not that scared of it. And yeah, all the rest of them, Venusaur can switch into certain of their hits, like resisted fighting type move from Heracross, or Thunderbolt from Zapdos, or Water move from Suicune or Starmie. And then threaten them, but can't necessarily threaten them depending on their coverage, like if they have ice or flying coverage, etc., etc. Venusaur is generally not favored against the physical attacking flying types that often carry hidden power flying. Not so good into the psychic types. Not so good into Gengar, who actually resists pretty much all of Venusaur's options except for Hidden Power Fire or Hidden Power Ghost if you're going to do that. And also can spread Will-O-Wisp on Venusaur, which Venusaur does not like Will-O-Wisp, especially if it's a physical attacker. And then Blissey generally will muscle through Venusaur. Now, Venusaur has the same counterplay to Blissey as something like Celebi does, where you can just Leech Seed it and get tons of HP back, which is quite nice. And then we're just really, really bad into the fire types and Jinx, who is outspeeding us, threatening to put us to sleep, and has a super effective stab Ice Beam. So yeah, a rare Pokemon that loses to Jinx in this tier. No, I mean Jinx is fine. It definitely has its place. Yeah, that's Venusaur. You might think this looks really bad actually. It's really only beating solidly one Pokemon. Everything else is kind of can play around it a little bit. But here's the thing: you haven't considered what happens to the matchup if Venusaur lands its Leech or its Sleep Powder. And yeah, I mean, look at all these Pokemon. They're just asleep, and there's not really much they can do about it. I mean, well, granted, if they're running a Lumberry, then maybe they can do something about it, but forget that for a moment. You know, if they're not running the Lumberry, which most of these Pokemon are usually going to run leftovers, they're going to be asleep and they can't do anything. So as the Venusaur, you could either attack them with one of your moves that is really good into them, or you could Leech Seed them, or you could switch to a Pokemon that more appropriately deals with these threats here. And like, there's not much your opponents can do about that. Now, there are some Pokemon that have Natural Cure, which will cure the sleep status when they switch out. And like, that could be kind of bad for you. And then of course there's the Slot Machine, who would love nothing more than for you to put it to sleep so that it can 1/3 of the time roll into a Guts boosted Mega Horn and smash you. Now granted, if I'm being honest with myself, there are a few other Pokemon like Suicune who get Sleep Talk as well, who could potentially get through Venusaur, depending on how many Calm Mind boosts it has. But I mean, obviously I have to shout out the Slot Machine. But yeah, I mean, and this is a little bit like generous for Venusaur, obviously, but there are not like these Pokemon in this Zenless Zone 0 tier, or is that what it's called? I don't remember. All these Pokemon do not want to be asleep. They want to be getting progress any other way, and sleep absolutely impedes that. So that's really good. So the standard Venusaur sets, I talked about this one, the Disabler. It's got Sleep Powder, Leech Seed, Sludge Bomb, Synthesis. Almost every Venusaur set is going to have Sleep Powder. There are some physical attacker ones that can go without it, but like, Sleep Powder affords Venusaur a lot of free turns to do a lot of damage. And then in conjunction with Leech Seed, you can heal yourself back up fairly reliably against Pokemon that aren't like smashing you for like upwards of 60-70%. Now this Disabler has Synthesis. I don't generally like Synthesis, mainly because Sand is so common and it reduces Synthesis's ability to heal you. The second most common weather type, and the most common to clear Sandstorm with, is Rain, thanks to the synergies that Swift Swim Pokemon like Kingdra and Ludicolo get with it. That also reduces Synthesis's ability to heal you. So I'm generally not a fan of Synthesis. I think if you're going to do this, there's definitely an argument for Earthquake as the fourth move. Or, I mean, potentially you could do Swords Dance there, but then you're getting a little bit more into what the physical attacker is all about. Sludge Bomb plus Earthquake coverage is actually not bad. Like, that hits a lot of Pokemon. Notably, the one Pokemon you can't hit is Skarmory. So if you are running this set, you're kind of just shut down by Skarmory, which is why I think potentially you could go more the Disabler route, which has Leech Seed instead of a coverage move and or a boosting move, so that you have something at least that you can do against Skarmory. But no, the physical attacker is quite nice. If you do this, I would pair it with Magneton, so that you can get rid of the Skarmory. It'd also be nice to get rid of Fortress if you can as well. Or you could even go with the Endure Hidden Power Grass route if you would like to be better against Swampert. Yeah, in any case, physical attacker definitely should pair it with a Magneton of some sort. But yeah, then lastly, we have the special attacker, which in my opinion is the easiest Venusaur set to use. I think it's also one of the better ones. So this EV spread is really, really crazy. And I tried to find what it was for, and I actually could find a little bit of what it might have been trying to do. again, I have a little bit of an axe to grind with some of these Smogon uh, write-ups for these sets. Like, they don't go into enough detail about what the bulk is specifically for. They'll say something like, oh, it helps you live Tyranitar rock slides, and then you go into the calc and you look at it and it's like, well, I mean, if I had 0 defense EVs, I would live a Tyranitar rock slide. Adamant, Jolly, bulky T-Tar, whatever it is. I don't even know what T-Tar you're talking about. Like, I wish they would be a little bit more direct, a little bit more straightforward about what these are, and that's why I try to make these, even if I'm using a Smogon set. But yeah, this 80 special attack was a little bit interesting to me. Now, I know one of the stats generally becomes the leftover, the like stat where you put whatever you have left over into it, and that might be the case for the special attack. But one thing that I noticed about it is that if you had Giga Drain instead of Razor Leaf, you would get a guaranteed OHKO on offensive Swampert, which is kind of interesting, and that makes me wonder if this set used to be Giga Drain instead of Razor Leaf, but somebody decided that they wanted Razor Leaf instead. So then they cut They cut Giga Drain for Razor Leaf, but they didn't update the EV spread, which is, I mean, I don't know. But I'm going to tell you that I ended up using something very similar to this, but I tuned the EVs just a little bit. So one thing you'll notice is, the HP is basically the same. I cut 4 to afford some stats in other areas. And an important thing to note, anytime you cut out of your HP stat, you need to check if your calcs still line up. There are definitely times when moves do not deal any more damage to you, having a lower HP stat, but having a lower HP stat means that the moves deal a greater percentage of your HP, so you have to check that out. But I opted to do a little bit less special attack and a little bit more defense. This defense will allow us to live an Adamant, Choice Band, Metagross, Meteor Mash, plus Sand Chip, which is, I think, very, very incredible for a Pokemon that does not resist Metagross and is not investing entirely in its defense stat. That's really cool. What that will let you do is you can get a Leech Seed, or probably more likely a Sleep Powder off on the Metagross, so that you can either threaten it with HP Fire, which, I mean, admittedly is not doing that much damage, or you can switch to another Pokemon that will more effectively deal with the Metagross. But maybe it's not super duper safe to switch into a Metagross because it might not take 2 Meteor Mashes, for example. And that's really key. The Spadef we left basically the same. To me, it looks like this is designed to live a modest Psychic from Celebi after 3 layers of spikes. Or if the Celebi is not modest, you can live it with the 3 layers plus Sand Chip. That's kind of cool. What can you do against Celebi in that case? Well, you could Sleep Powder it to force it to switch. Or you could get a little bit of chip off with your HP Fire, and then maybe puts it in range for something in the back, like a Metagross or Aerodactyl or whatever to finish off. We have a 37.5% to OHKO on offensive Swampert just off rip, and it's guaranteed if we have 1 layer of Spike Up. So that's pretty good. Razor Leaf is a strange move. You might say, why would you ever use Razor Leaf when Giga Drain is literally more accurate and more powerful? If you don't know, Giga Drain, 60 base power, 100 accuracy, heals you, I believe, half of the damage that you deal. Whereas Razor Leaf is 55 base power, 95 accuracy, and all it has is an increased critical hit ratio. That's a little bit of the part of the right why you would use Razor Leaf. It can help you break through something like a Calm Mind Suicune in the long run. But a big reason why you would use Razor Leaf is because it has 24 PP instead of Giga Drain's 8. So Giga Drain is very liable to get ran out of PP, especially for a Pokemon as bulky as Venusaur that's trying to stay around. So Razor Leaf is a little bit preferred so that you have more PP, so that you don't get stalled by things like Zapdos switching in or Moltres switching in with its pressure. So yeah, and then Leech Seed, Sleep Powder obviously makes sense why you would have those moves. But as for the speed, we're actually trying to speed creep defensive Suicune and Jirachi. So Jirachi being a base 100, you think, wow, that's got a lot of speed. How are you going to be faster than that? But there is a Jirachi set, a fairly common one, not one that I've featured in any of my videos yet, I don't believe, but it's got Body Slam, Fire Punch, Wish Protect. In order to make it so that its Body Slam and Fire Punch are not like wet noodles in terms of attack, it opts to run a minus speed nature, which puts it at 212. So that's what we're outspeeding with Venusaur. And then defensive Suicune, especially like the bold one, generally runs about 210 speed. And we'll outspeed that. As far as like an offensive Pokemon goes, we're going to outspeed most offensive Swamperts. We're also going to outspeed, not the plus speed and Endeavorpert, but we'll also outspeed Marowak, which is a pretty big one for a Pokemon that is not OU ranked. A lot of Pokemon are trying to outspeed Marowak. So that there's kind of a log jam there. If you ever seen a choice banded Metagross running 208 speed, that's why. It's because it wants to be faster than Marowak. Yeah, so I think this is going to be kind of interesting. And I've been talking a lot about Venusaur as a lead, and that's kind of why I like this Adamant CB Metagross idea. It gives you an option to stay in and click Leech Seed versus Metagross. Now, I don't think I would generally advise doing that if you don't know what team you're up against, but it does give you an option there, and you could stop the Houdini Metagross from trading, which is kind of cool. But let's talk about this team structure. So I'm as I've been alluding to throughout the video, we're doing a lead Venusaur here to get the early momentum with Sleep. And we're going to pair it with Rock Spam. Now, Rock Spam, I don't know if this is like a super duper official archetype, but by my estimation, Rock Spam is Tyranitar plus Aerodactyl. Both of which are going to try to Dragon Dance, get fast, and spam Rock Slide. And they're both generally bulky enough to live a hit. Aerodactyl maybe less so than Tyranitar, but if they 2-hit KO, they'll live a hit, and if they flinch you, then they get to keep their HP and continue the sweep, which is kind of nice. I'm pairing this with Swampert and Claydol to handle other Rock-type moves. It's really, really important to have Rock Resist in this generation. I think one, like Swampert or Claydol, is generally sufficient, but it is nice to have two if you can. And I think Swampert pairs really well with Venusaur because it switches into some of the things that Venusaur is a little bit scared out by, particularly Salamence and Moltres. Well, to greater or lesser extents, you don't necessarily want to take a HP Grass or a Will-O-Wisp on Swampert, but in any case, Swampert and Skarmory are really good at handling Metagross. And then if you're playing against a team that has a bulky water, particularly Suicune, you are going to want to preserve Venusaur to not get swept and to put the Leech Seed on. Leech Seed puts a lot of pressure on bulky waters that want to sit in for a lot of turns and get their leftovers healing to switch out. Because while while you might not be making progress on them, they're oftentimes not making progress on you, because any like their weak surf that thuds into something like a Venusaur or a Skarmory is going to get generally just healed off with Leech Seed. So that's kind of nice. And then just as a note, as you'll see in some of these replays, I was using a Choice Band Metagross instead of Swampert, which is kind of nice because it gives you a little bit more of an offensive edge, but it's a little less sturdy into an opposing like Dragon Dance Tyranitar. If the Metagross is not fully healthy, it's very liable to get outsped and killed by a Earthquake from a Dragon Dance Tyranitar, so that's not super duper nice. Swampert is generally really good at beating that, and it's also better into Pursuit Tars than Claydol is, so there's utility in having both. So yeah, that's basically the team. We are going to close out of this, zoom in a little bit, and find some nice music here. So as for the music here, I chose the regular battle theme for the trainer, and this is not because I think Venusaur is so vanilla and that it doesn't deserve a super hype song, but like, let's be honest here, if you're about my age and like your early to mid 20s here, and you're playing some FireRed, LeafGreen, and you picked Venusaur as your starter, like, what song do you associate with Venusaur more than this, right? Like, that starter in those games, like, saw the lion's share of the battles, and if you happen to pick Venusaur like I did, then yeah, you were chilling here. And yeah, let's give Venusaur his big fat flower on his back as his flowers. I don't know if that is translated well. In any case, I do have some I think 5 battles today, so a little more than usual, but I'll try to get through them pretty quickly. And this first one, I put a note here to remind myself, is to talk about how Venusaur pressures the Skarmbliss combo. So here comes a lead Skarmory. Lead Skarmory is sometimes faster than Venusaur, but if it's faster than Venusaur, then it's usually Yellow Skarm, which is, okay. I make a distinction between offensive Skarm and Yellow Skarm. In my estimation, offensive Skarmory is adamant and has leftovers. Yellow Skarm, for me, is timid and has soft sand. I think they usually use the same 4 moves, which would be Drill Peck, Spikes, Hidden Power Ground to hit Magneton, and Taunt. And while I think offensive Skarm and Yellow Skarm do have their place, I'm more than willing to find out if this is a Yellow Skarm with my lead Venusaur here. But it is probably not based on the fact that I outsped it. And I get my sleep off on it, which stops it from being able to get its spikes up. Now I'm going to go for HP Fire to threaten to beat down the Skarm. And my opponent stays asleep for 3 turns. It's possible he could wake up this turn, or that he could stay asleep for another turn, and he didn't want to risk that, so he's going to switch. So here comes the Blissey, and I'm going to Leech Seed that. And even though the Blissey has a super effective Flamethrower, it's not dealing that much damage. And after the leftovers and Leech Seed, I'm almost back to full. Now I'll go to Tyranitar, who is generally pretty good into Blissey, and my opponent goes to Metagross. I don't like that, so I'll go to Skarm. This is not a banded Metagross. Based on that damage, which is good information, so I will get my Spike up. Starmie comes in, I'll go back to Venusaur. Venusaur does not like to take a Psychic, and it kind of doesn't like to take an Ice Beam either, but we're going to threaten to 2-hit KO with Razor Leaf, so I'll go for it. Does absolutely no damage to Metagross, but I'll take some chip with Hidden Power Fire. My opponent misses Meteor Mash. Goes for Protect. I will just go for another HP Fire. So this is reading bulky Metagross to me. So I will try to Leech Seed it. If I got the Leech Seed on the Blissey there, that would have been really nice. But I'm just going to go for it again because its Flamethrower was so weak. But it reveals to be Calm Mind Blissey, which is kind of interesting. Usually you don't see Flamethrower on Calm Mind Blissey. It's usually Thunderbolt and Ice Beam as its 2 attacking moves. But as it does not have one of the two of those, I'm going to go to Swampert, maybe tease out the Ice Beam so we can be for sure. Now, there are some Blissey that will run Flamethrower HP Grass coverage, but this was a risk I was willing to take because that's insane. Like, it's so uncommonly seen now, but maybe it should make a resurgence. I don't know. I go for an Earthquake, which hits the Starmie pretty well. This communicates to me that this has got to be a defensive Starmie, and I get a crit, which is really, really nice. Although, that being said, Starmie would have put itself in kind of a loop where it was going to have to keep recovering and keep getting hit by my Earthquake, and I would keep getting HP back on my Swampert, so I was willing to spend some Earthquakes to get my HP back. And if you end up going to Skarmory, then that's not ultimately the worst thing in the world for me. So I think that turn played out about how I think it was good for me either way, whether I got the crit or not. So I'm not too, I don't know if I should say I'm not too apologetic about that or anything. It sounds like I'm very callous invitational even. I've kind of foolishly decide to just go for damage on the Metagross and not protect. When you're up against and this is a learning opportunity for all of us, if you have a defensive Swampert in against a bulky Metagross, meaning one that does, primarily meaning one that doesn't have agility, then you are not in a bad spot as the Swampert to just click Protect, because there's nothing that Metagross can do that hurts the Swampert, and you prefer to get your leftovers over the Metagross, because Metagross struggles to break through Swampert, especially if he doesn't have a hidden power Grass, whereas Swampert does not struggle to break through the Metagross in 2 or 3 turns. So I should have clicked Protect there, but I'm still up a Pokemon and I'm in a good spot. Here comes Venusaur into a Dugtrio. I go for Razor Leaf and I don't kill, so this is one of the disadvantages of this Venusaur spread, is that it will not kill Dugtrio with Razor Leaf, generally speaking. Now, if you get hit into Overgrow range, then you can kill, but that would probably require you to sacrifice some HP or defense, which I generally don't advise, but I digress. This Dugtrio will allow me to get Spikes up with Skarmory pretty safely. Here comes the Calm Mind Blissey. I will go to Tyranitar at this stage. It's a little scary to go Tyranitar when there's a revealed Dugtrio, but as you'll see in the pace, I'm actually bulky DD Tyranitar, so I don't really mind, because I know I'm going to live an Earthquake from Dugtrio, and I think my opponent is kind of playing for that, except they Roar, so that's kind of good for them to get my Tyranitar out of there. I don't have Taunt on my Skarmory, so I'm going to just switch hard to Aerodactyl, because otherwise I'm just going to let this guy get 3 layers of Spikes up. And I think letting him get 3 layers of Spikes up, for me to get 3 layers up, is not generally worth it here. But yeah, that Skarmory didn't get to do much all game, because it was asleep for a majority of this game. I get to spin with the Claydol late here. I'm going to blow up on this Blissey if he lets me. And he does, and basically he has no way to win the game. Aerodactyl should just be able to come in and destroy what's in front of it. Lastmon Suicune could maybe get pulled through, but we won't see. So yeah, that's actually pretty nice. Venusaur, yeah, with the sleep on Skarmory, it really reduced my opponent's ability to get a bunch of spikes down. Additionally, the Blissey was not able to make a lot of progress on the Venusaur because of Leech Seed. So that's, I think, a good enough reason to use Venusaur, is that it can beat both to some extent. Something that Celebi is a little bit struggling to do. So this next game here, we're gonna see a little bit more about like abusing sleep for an advantage. So Venusaur versus Zapdos. The Zapdos generally will lose this matchup unless it's Choice Band with Drill Peck or Substitute. So I don't know if I would generally advise going for the Sleep Powder first play against a lead Zapdos with this team. I'm still kind of figuring. I was still kind of figuring it out as I was playing this battle. So, well, I don't know if I would do that. Generally speaking, it can be nice if it is the right Zapdos, and I actually get a sleep on Magneton here, which is really, really strange. I have no idea why my opponent wanted to go Magneton on Venusaur. Maybe they're thinking that Magneton is the least consequential Pokemon to get sleep sacked. But they will go to Celebi to stop my Leech Seed, which is quite nice. I'm going to go to Tyranitar on a Psychic, which is really nice. I was mostly trying to stop it from getting a bunch of Calm Minds up. And I'll go for Hidden Power Bug. That kind of does nothing into Swampert. But I can go to Scarm. I take an Ice Beam pretty well. I don't get frozen, which is nice. And then I can get a Spike up. Now, generally, when Magneton is revealed as the Skarmory, you do not want to, like, brazenly go for a Spike. Because Magneton's just going to come in and trap and kill your Skarm. Now, some teams are kind of fine with that. They'll happily trade the whole Skarmory for one layer of Spikes. But if you don't have to, then don't. And I don't have to because Magneton has not burned a turn of sleep yet, so it's guaranteed to be asleep this turn, so I can roar it away. In comes Swampert. At this stage, I do not want to let the Magneton back in. Most Magneton players, and for good reason, will immediately go back to Magneton if they get roared out by the Skarmory. So to not give the Magneton any chance to trap and kill my Skarm, I will go to Venusaur, who's also perfectly fine into Swampert if my opponent chooses to stay. And I will go for a Hidden Power Fire, both to hit the Magneton and to hit a Celebi coming in. And I do hit the Celebi, which is quite nice. I'll stay in and go for another HP Fire to kind of see what the Celebi wants to do. I should live a Psychic, and I do. And I'll go for another HP Fire just to get some damage. Basically, really to force the Celebi into recover as I go to my Choice Band Metagross, which is who I have instead of Swampert this game. I'll go for a Meteor Mash, which crits and kills the Celebi. Probably wouldn't have killed the Celebi otherwise, but that's kind of the risk that we take. I think it would have done about 60%, assuming that it was a utility Celebi. So I will not be able to do much against this Magneton, who has successfully trapped and killed my Metagross. This is definitely an argument for like Protect on Magneton, in conjunction with the Leech Seed. So Magneton will Protect on my Claydol, I guess, just to see what it's going to do. It guards against Explosion. It would be so bad to explode in that moment. But here, I will go for Psychic, scouting basically for Protect or Substitute. I wouldn't even break a Substitute, so that's not great. But considering that the Zapdos just kind of looks like it wants to beat me down with HP, Ice, or Grass, I'm just going to blow up on it. I get Venusaur in versus Salamence, which is not nice, so I will go to Scarm. I get crit HP Flying, and this has no item. This is screaming Choice Band. It's got to be. So I'm going to Roar, predicting Magneton to want to come in. Get a little bit of chip on Swampert. Magneton's going to come back in again. This time I'm just going to get the Spike up. I kind of thought that my opponent wouldn't go hard back to Magneton again. But I'm kind of okay to lose the Skarmory at this stage. Really, my win con is to beat down the Swampert so that my Aerodactyl or my Tyranitar in the back can win the game. Swampert's going to come in now. I just go for Earthquake to get damage, and I get a nice critical. That is really, really good because now it's certainly going to die to most of my moves here. But in any case, I can get Venusaur in and get a Sleep Powder. As long as I hit it, something is going to be taken out of this endgame situation. The Swampert decides to stay in. We're going to see a Lastmon Suicune here, and I go for a Leech Seed. I was kind of predicting Salamence to come in, so I wanted to get the best move on Salamence, but I just get a nice Leech on the Suicune, which is good damage. Salamence will come in now on my Razor Leaf, which is not great, and then I can go to Aerodactyl, who takes a solid 52 from that banded Hidden Power Flying, which is not nice. Double Edge should kill the Mence there. This Suicune, I don't think I will kill it. I could if it was offensive, but if it's a defensive bold Suicune, I won't. So I'm going to go to Venusaur, and I'm going to Sleep Powder the Suicune. So that's the thing with like your sleep sacks, as it were. You have to save them, because if you sacrifice a Pokemon that's sleeping, then Venusaur can just come back in and sleep another Pokemon. And it's really good to do that against the Suicune, which otherwise would be able to control its own destiny, be like very consistent with Rest, because Rest is always 2 turns to wake up, but this Suicune's kind of playing with fire here. I'm going to go immediately back to Aerodactyl, which covers his Salamence switch, and as long as the Suicune stayed asleep for another turn, I would have been fine. Because of the attack drop, I think I have to go for Rock Slide, and I get the Rock Slide kill, and my opponent decides to forfeit with Suicune left. Probably, if this was played out, I would have went to Venusaur, got my Leech Seed off, and if Suicune was still asleep, just keep clicking Razor Leaf until it has to rest itself. And then Aerodactyl can come in, leech some HP back, and then try to win the game with Rock Slides or Double Edges. So not that my opponent immediately had this game lost, but it was looking very dire for them. They decided to forfeit, which if this was a tournament game, if I was the opponent, I would play it out. But yeah, most likely a loss for them in any case. All right, next game. That last one was mostly about how, like, you know, Venusaur can get multiple sleeps in a game, and this is going to be about how you can eliminate one Pokemon entirely from the game by sleeping it. So lead Starmie here, which is very uncommon. I guess it is usually offensive if it does. I'm just going to Razor Leaf to threaten the 2-hit KO on it. If it doesn't have Psychic, it shouldn't 2-hit KO me through leftovers. And that's the case there. So I'm going to get a Leech Seed off on this Mantine, who's a very, very niche Pokemon, usually looking to find a Suicune matchup, potentially a Swampert matchup as well, but I can just go to Skarmory and get a Spike up in its face. Yeah, the Hydro Pump hurts, but with the Leech Seed recovering me back, I'm kind of fine with that. I go for Protect on a switch to Fortress. Fortress is usually not great for Skarmory. Well, it kind of depends. You can kind of Spike in its face all day as long as you have leftovers up, and Rapid Spin is never going to kill your Skarmory, but Fortress can get spikes up on Skarmory, which is not nice. So I opt to go to Venusaur here. And I'm threatening to sleep this, but my opponent goes to Mantine, and that goes to sleep. And then I want you to see on what turn this Mantine wakes up, if it ever does. I Leech Seed, get some HP back on Venusaur. Now I'm going to live a Starmie Ice Beam, if that comes in. Go for Razor Leaf, and my opponent reveals Raikou. Which is a little bit dangerous, because what if I had a Doug Trio? I could come in, and I would break this Raikou sub, live whatever hidden power it is, and then kill it. But maybe my opponent was thinking, nah, this guy doesn't have Doug Trio. In comes Marowak. I will just go for Chip with Earthquake, because I feel like I can save the Claydol. If I didn't think I could save the Claydol, I would have boomed. But because I thought I could, because I thought Skarmory would live an Earthquake into a Double Edge into Rock Slide, I do this. So I come in and I barely live it. I don't get flinched, and I get the Drill Peck off, which is just nice. Starmie will come in. I'm fine to let Starmie get its leftovers at the cost of getting my leftovers, and then I will go to Swampert, who takes an Ice Beam pretty well, except I get frozen. That's really not nice. But I have a freeze sack now, but I actually sack my Skarmory to preserve the freeze sack, if you would. Aerodactyl comes in, and if this is an offensive Starmie, I will always kill it with Double Edge there, and it, like, I mean, it's screaming offensive. Now here comes Metagross, who basically my last out, because my last is Tyranitar, right, is to Thaw with this Swampert and beat it down. If not, I could go to Venusaur and maybe maybe I get like crits with HP Fire, but this is actually looking really bad for me. But I do end up thawing here on the second turn in against the Metagross, which is really nice. I get most of my HP back here. My opponent will go to Mantine on an Earthquake. Because everything on this team is grounded, and generally Earthquake hits everything better than Surf, I was never going for Surf, but also the Mantine has Water Absorb. It might have Swift Swim, actually, because of Rain Dance, but I doubt it. It's probably Water Absorb still. It will wall my Swampert for the most part. I feel like Tyranitar is pretty safe against Raikou, even if it has HP Grass, but it actually reveals to be HP Ice, so somebody is trying to lose to Flygon. I go for a DD against Fortress, who explodes on me. I live it. I'm faster than this Metagross, so I can get my Earthquake off. I don't kill because bulky DDT Tart is just like that. But I'm okay with this because even if my opponent gets the attack raise here, I go to Swampert. And the only move that Metagross can click to kill me is Explosion. I will go for Protect to scout for it. And then I should kill back with Earthquake, unless my opponent wants to explode, but I don't think my opponent does. Here comes Claydol into the Mantine, who's asleep for the 4th turn, and finally wakes up on turn 36 to reset the weather and die to an Explosion. Yeah, I don't know how consequential that's going to be because Aerodactyl can now come in and Earthquake and kill everything, and my opponent will just shoot their computer and lose due to inactivity, which is, frankly, pretty funny. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, that's how frustrating sleep can be. Like, there's nothing this Mantine really could do. It just gave a bunch of free turns, and even if the Mantine woke up, because Venusaur is still here and still healthy, it could come in on something like a Metagross and click another Sleep Powder, which is really, really dirty. One thing I'll note as well with synergy with Skarmory is you like to have spikes down because there are a lot of Pokemon that could run Lumberry, Metagross being one of them. And if you can get spikes damage on the Metagross, then Metagross will have to reveal its item if it's leftovers. If it's not leftovers, then I guess it's still kind of a 50-50 between Lum and Choice Band. But yeah, you don't want to waste a turn with Venusaur clicking Sleep Powder into a Lumberry Pokemon if the Lumberry Pokemon is in a position to attack you back. Because, yeah, you don't want to get 2-hit KO'd by Meteor Mash just for a chance to get rid of its Lumberry, especially on this team, which has Venusaur is really the only status spreader. So, yeah, Spikes is really good for revealing the leftovers. Alright, this next game, we're going to look a little bit more at Venusaur's defensive utility. So, let's go with this. Versus lead Zapdos. I think at this point I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I like staying in on Zapdos generally, so I will go to my bulky Tyranitar, and I will go for switch back to Venusaur. A reason why is because lead Zapdos is somewhat commonly paired with Dugtrio, and I don't want to allow my weakened Tyranitar to get Dugtrio trapped. But I'm in against a Weezing, which is a pretty interesting Pokemon. One of the other poison types that might be seen in ADV.
OU. I think there are basically like 3 of them. And we just saw 2 of them on the field at the same time. So I'll get a Leech Seed off on Starmie, which is really nice. It's going to Thunder Wave me, and I'm just going to take my Razor Leaf chip back. With Leech Seed, I'm favored to break through the Starmie if it decides to stay in, but I figure it's going to switch out, and I get a really nice switch to Swampert there. Earthquake is going to do a nice amount of chip to Breloom. And then because my Venusaur is paralyzed, I can go back to it, and Breloom can't do anything. If this is a sub-Leech Seed Breloom, it can't Leech Seed me because I'm a Grass type. It can't Spore me because I'm paralyzed, and if it's got Fighting type moves, I resist that. So Venusaur is hard countering the Breloom here. So the Thunder Wave actually works out in my favor. I get a Hidden Power off. Would have hit the Breloom. Probably killed it, and it hits this Metagross pretty hard. To me, this looks like it's not a very bulky Metagross, so it's either Band or Agility. I think this, the damage to my Skarmory suggests that it's not banded, and I get a really nice prediction Drill Peck on the Starmie, so now my hazards will stay up. In comes Breloom to threaten to sleep. Instead goes for Focus Punch and deals a whopping 37% to Venusaur, which is kind of pitiful. Goes for Sky Uppercut and misses. That probably would have done like 20-ish, maybe 25 on the high end. And yeah, I mean, Venusaur is getting tons of value here. Tyranitar will Dragon Dance up, but I will, as a Swampert, I will live that generally. I get a critical hit, but don't quite kill. And then I get Earthquake for 42%, and then Surf, gets there. And now this game is looking kind of out of hand for my opponent. I'll go to Claydol on the Zapdos. It goes for Toxic. It's pretty nasty. We got to switch to Weezing, and I'm going to immediately blow up. Sort of my thought there was, if this Zapdos has Toxic, it's very, very likely that it's just Spadef Zapdos, meaning not running Substitute. So I'm kind of fine with just blowing up and getting the damage. But I end up blowing up into the Weezing, who's still asleep. I can get a Dragon Dance. If my opponent switches this turn, they lose. And if they don't wake up with Weezing, then they probably still lose. And yeah, they forfeit. They don't even try to let me go for a Rock Slide miss. Yeah, and that's really nice. Now, if the Weezing woke up, it could have hit a Will-O-Wisp, which would have kind of hampered my Tyranitar, but I could still trade into something, and then I have Aerodactyl in the back to run a similar sort of fade on the rest of this team. So I think I still would have won in the long run, but it is kind of unlikely that the opponent will wake up with a 1 turn burned. Yeah, I think it's a worthwhile risk. And then last thing is this game here, which let's just sit back and enjoy. The Zapdos is in. It's a Protect Zap. Protects against my Sleep Powder. I guess this is, I was still thinking that Sleep Powder is the right play into lead Zapdos. I'll switch to T-Tar on his switch to T-Tar, then Swampert on his switch to Swampert, and then Skarmory on his switch to Fortress, which is, I think, a really, really funny sequence of plays. As you can tell, both of us are fall from the same tree, and what we think is countering what. It is important to note, though, if Tyranitar is switching in on Venusaur, then that means that it is either a Pokemon that is fine to get Sleep Sacked, or it's a Pokemon that is threatening Venusaur directly with, like, Fire Blast. So, yeah, that's important to know. I'm in against the Fortress, and I'm faster than Fortress, so I'm just going to take my Sleep. So Fortress is Nighty-Night. Zapdos will come in, and I predict a switch to something. It happens to be Zapdos. I get my Leech Seed off. And then, because I'm fine taking whatever damage here, I go for my HP Fire. I crit, and I kill the Fortress, which is important because I can then sleep something else later in the game. And then it's almost like I'm playing 6-on-4, which is fantastic. Yeah, I did not expect, honestly, I did not expect Fortress to come in there. I just wanted to get Chip on Zapdos, um, force it to click a move into Venusaur that was not going to do much of anything. Like, Thunder Wave would probably be the worst thing it could do if it's a Protect Zapdos. Um, but most likely Protect is Toxic, so that means that if it's Thunderbolt, HP Grass, Toxic as its other three moves, then Venusaur is absolutely walling the crap out of that Zapdos, which is generally good for me. So that's why I went for the HP Fire. But I managed to hit the lottery and crit the Fortress as it comes in, which is really nice because Venusaur, even with HP Fire, is not generally killing a Fortress, at least not the standard Fortress. But yeah, that's what I have to say about Venusaur. It's a little long in the tooth, but with more battles this time. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope you guys are seeing sort of the power of Sleep in this generation, especially in conjunction with two monsters in Tyranitar and Aerodactyl. Those guys are tough. They're the reasons why you have to have Rock Resist, because otherwise your defensive Pokemon is one unlucky flinch away from you losing the game. So, yeah. Um, I think I probably will be doing another offensive Pokemon. Venusaur, as I say, is generally a facilitator of offense. It could be good on a defensive team, especially if you're doing that Disabler set. But I do think that Sleep, generally offensive Pokemon like the extra turns more than defensive. Um, or at least they can do more with those turns. Um, and so, yeah, Venusaur is quite nice for that. I think I will probably do another offensive Pokemon next. Maybe even another starter. Ooh, that's narrows it down for you if you're still watching at this point. Want some inside baseball? There you go. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think Venusaur is really nice. I can see why it's ranked so highly. Um, uh, and if I may be so bold, it might even be better than Breloom. I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of it. I guess one thing I should say as I'm stalling at the end here, why run so much defensive uh, stuff on Venusaur as compared to investing in its offenses using that base 100 special attack in conjunction with its relatively good speed and free turns afforded from sleep to generate its own offense. Well, the thing is, like, because its stats are so similar to Celebi and it is relying on basically the same moves as Celebi, except it doesn't get Stab Psychic on top of Grass plus HP Fire. If you're gonna do a fully offensive Venusaur like that, like, why not just use Celebi, right? And you don't get Calm Mind, you don't get Baton Pass to facilitate other Pokemon. So yeah, the Venusaur's main weakness, I guess, is that it's worse at being an offensive threat than Celebi. So it's also a little worse at being a defensive threat, but I think this is the niche that it thrives the most in, is this Sleep Powder facilitate for the other Pokemon. So, yep, that's enough yapping at the end in the conclusion. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you for the next one.